Hey Queens, welcome to Captivation Radio, a podcast designed to teach women how to love their bodies, transform their mindset, and attract the life of their dreams. I'm your host Fallon, the queen of all things captivation. I'm a certified personal trainer and a mindset coach. I have a passion for helping women go from mediocrity to queen status. Each week, I will discuss how you can use fitness, mindset, and manifestation to overcome feelings of lack, raise your energy, finally claim your power, and step into the life you deserve. Hey Queens, welcome back to Captivation Radio. In 2021, we have made an agreement. We are not going to deal with any nonsense from anyone. We are owning our power and being the one in control of all of the things that we can control in our lives. We are taking as much joy from life as we can. And one of the biggest challenges women face, especially women entrepreneurs, is establishing and maintaining boundaries. Boundaries explain to people how we expect to be treated. Setting and sustaining these boundaries is a skill that you can build over time. So I don't want you to worry if you currently have no established boundaries. It is not too late for you. You can start now, start today, and get those boundaries in place. The thing with women is we are so accustomed to doing everything and playing so many roles for different people that it can feel like we're doing something incredibly wrong when we finally do set some boundaries. However, I want you to know right now, there is nothing wrong with it. In fact, knowing and understanding your limits make it easier to achieve your goals and leads to better quality relationships. Setting these boundaries will encourage healthy relationships as well as protecting your mental health and avoiding burnout. This will also allow you to be the very best version of yourself for you and allow you to be your best for everyone else as well. The first thing we have to do is learn to be honest about our capabilities and time. Setting boundaries begins with self-awareness. We have to understand we cannot accept every client, every business opportunity, every social opportunity. Time is limited. And if you listened last week, we created our schedules and a routine. So now you should have a better idea of what time you really have available for people. And I want you to make note, there are going to be opportunities you're not going to want to miss, even if you don't know how you're going to make it work. And when you get that feeling that you must do something, you will know. And I encourage you to always listen to that voice. But don't accept every opportunity just because you think you should, or you feel like you're going to let someone else down if you don't. Life is short, and you should spend it on things that set your soul on fire, not things that you do simply out of obligation. So what are your limits? Before you can tell anyone else what your limitations are, you must know what they are for yourself. Boundaries can and should be set in lots of different areas, and some of the categories are physical, emotional, intellectual, time and material, and spiritual. As things come up in life that make you uncomfortable, then you can realize a boundary needs to be set and set the appropriate boundary and communicate them to others. Today, I'm going to go over just some basics of boundaries in different categories, how to know when your boundaries are being broken, how to communicate your boundaries, and then you guys will have the job of getting your boundaries set. All right. Physical boundaries are just what they sound like. Boundaries regarding your body, your privacy, and your personal space. For example, when you're at the store and people get extremely close, it's okay to ask them to move. If you hate people trying to hug you, it's okay to say so. Your body is just that. It's yours. Do not be afraid to tell people if something they're doing makes you uncomfortable. If you are at the grocery store and somebody refuses to social distance, you can ask them politely. And you can always try getting one of those like pool noodle hats that you see on social media that is 6 feet and just whack them with it. Or, fake cough. Just kidding. But make sure that you tell people. You don't have to be uncomfortable. You can tell people, hey, do you mind if you just move back a little bit? And if being polite doesn't work, then you can always say F politeness and just tell them to get the F out your way. Okay? And emotional boundaries refer to your feelings. In relationships, romantic, familial, friendships, it's important to know and be able to explain what your emotional boundaries are. If you don't have clear boundaries, then you might start taking on the emotions of those around you. And also explaining to people how you want them to deal with you sharing your emotions is really important. For example, if you just want to vent to somebody, then you can preface the conversation in a way that allows you to do so. Because if you just start talking to somebody about your problems, people's natural instinct is to begin offering solutions. But if you're not looking for a solution, if you just want to get it off your chest, then I would preface the conversation like that. I don't really need any advice. I just really need somebody to listen. And if they still insist on giving advice, then that might not be a person that you want to talk to about your emotions in the future. Another example of an emotional boundary is teaching people to ask you if you have space for the conversation they wish to have. Many people like to dump their problems on others without first asking, and that can be incredibly draining. And teaching people this boundary will help to eliminate this problem. If you know someone who often just calls you and just starts dumping all their problems on you or messages you like paragraphs and paragraphs of problems without ever asking you if you're available to hear it, it's okay to tell them, like, hey, I enjoy our conversations, I enjoy our relationship, but sometimes I'm going through things of my own, so it would be really great if you could just ask me if I have the time and the space to hear what your problems are before you start telling me. And practice that yourself. If you have to get something off your chest, it's okay, and you should ask the person you're talking to, like, hey, I have something I need to talk about. Do you have the space to hear it right now? Because sometimes people don't, especially right now. We're all going through a lot. A lot of us are trying to run businesses, take care of kids, teach the kids. We never get out of the house. And it can be incredibly stressful. And we need to respect that everybody is going through a lot of different things and act accordingly. All right, the next one is intellectual boundaries, and that refers to your thoughts, values, and opinions. This one has been incredibly touchy as of late because this is the category in which political beliefs fall. I do not want you to be afraid to set boundaries regarding what you're willing to talk about. Just because someone attempts to begin a conversation with you doesn't mean you have to engage in that conversation. It's okay and sometimes incredibly necessary to explain that the conversation's not beneficial for your relationship and you just prefer not to talk about certain subjects. I know people that I'm never going to agree with certain things about, but I love them overall. I'm not going to spend our time talking about these subjects where I know neither one of us are going to change our minds. If it comes up, I have no problem saying, like, I don't want to fight with you, so I don't really want to talk about this. Or this conversation makes me uncomfortable. And can we go back to talking about anything else? Let's talk about basketball. Let's talk about the weather. Let's talk about anything else besides politics. And it's okay to create boundaries in your social media space too. I don't know if everybody that listens is on my social media, but I have gotten some flack for telling people that I don't want them in my space if they are filled with hate. And that goes for hate for anyone or anything. If your time is spent hating other people, hating the world, hating everything, I don't have the space for it. I might always not say it that nicely because I get super frustrated with people. People come back with, what about my free speech? Everyone has the right to say whatever they want to say, and you have the right to not listen to it. It's that simple. And people need to respect that. Just like if I'm talking about something and somebody doesn't want to talk about it, I have to respect that. I can sit at home and say it to myself all day. I can talk about it with people that want to talk about it, but you cannot force people to have conversations that they are uncomfortable with. You cannot force people to listen to your ranting on social media. Not you guys, because most of the people that are being especially crazy are not into personal development and probably are not listening to me because they don't really like me, which is okay. But you know what I'm saying? Your space, your boundaries. You can make them whatever you want. You can tell people if you make any political comments, I'm not talking to you. And it's up to you. You have to do what makes your life the way that you want it to be. And then next we have time and material boundaries. And these boundaries refer to, like I said, your time and then physical possessions, including money. So if you're a business person, these boundaries are incredibly important to have them in place. Without them, your job can become your life, or you can end up giving away too much for free. And this is when the schedule that we talked about last week becomes so important. You need to know what amount of time you have available to give clients, to give family, to give friends, and time for yourself. Because you absolutely must have time for yourself. I suggest having set hours that you're available to clients and times when you are clocked out. No one can maintain a 24/7 schedule without getting burnt out. This applies to being physically available and available for any type of communication. I've witnessed way too many women have all of their time stolen from them because they feel as if they have to answer messages all the time. You do not have to do that. Imagine you are the CEO, because you are the CEO of your life, and behave accordingly. No one feels entitled to be able to text the owner of Prada. Ever. But definitely not at 10 p.m. on a Sunday night expecting an immediate response. Your customers or clients should not feel as if they have that ability either. If you want to continue growing your business, you have to set the boundaries now, because it might be okay if you have 5 clients. You might not mind answering their questions, but what about when your business grows and you have 10 or 15 or 20 or even more? Do you want these people messaging you at 10 o'clock on a Sunday night? Do you want people interrupting the little bit of free time that you have for business? Or do you want to set these boundaries now? Since I started working on my podcast, I've had tons of people ask me, like, how are you going to do that? How does it work? So let me tell you, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's completely free. There's creation tools that allow you to record right through Anchor, and you can edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. So right away when you get started, you can start making money. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And even better, if you don't want to use Anchor to record, you can use your own recording platform and upload it. There's tons of advice on there. And all you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. And these are boundaries that you can set really easily. You can just not answer calls and messages about business outside business hours. So if I receive a message at 10 p.m. on a Sunday night, I'm not going to answer that message until Monday morning when I'm open for business. And then if I feel it necessary to explain, or if somebody asks, I will tell them, like, I'm back in the office now, or I'm back at the store now. And that's okay even if the office is just your desk in your bedroom or your kitchen table. None of that is anybody else's business. But this is your work time. Now I'm available for work. I wasn't on Sunday because it was my day off. And if people are messaging you on personal accounts or numbers, when you have business channels set up for people to talk to you, then you can also let them know. Like, hey, I would really like it if you sent business-related concerns to this email address. Like, that's my business policy, and it just makes everything way easier for bookkeeping or for whatever reason. And you can establish boundaries these ways without hurting anyone's feelings. Like, it's nothing personal, but this just makes my business run easier. Or my assistant needs to be able to see what messages are coming in, like things need to be scheduled properly through my calendar, or whatever. If you're running a business, I want you to run your business like a business, not like something you do on the side for fun. Think about when you call another business and how you interact with other businesses, and set the same rules and boundaries for your own business. And then this category also covers money. So it is equally as important to ensure you are paid an appropriate wage for your time. So I want you, if you are a service provider, like a virtual assistant, a coach, anything like that, I want you to have your minimum payment amount set. And I want you to charge it to everyone. Don't make exceptions just because people are friends or family. Don't make exceptions because you're suddenly doubting your worth. Your business is something for you to make a living from, and you need to treat it as such. When you discount yourself, everyone else is going to too. And now, if you work for somebody else, you have to set boundaries with your employer as well. In the past, when I still worked for other people, I have seen coworkers accept calls at all hours of the day and night. Whereas I had established I would not answer these calls. And therefore, after the first couple of ignored calls, I didn't receive them anymore. But the girl that was okay with answering the phone at 11 p.m. continued to receive these calls. And it drove her crazy, but she never said anything. You have to remember, people will take as much as they can. And that's not saying people are bad or anything like that. But it's natural to try to get as much as you can. And we can't blame them if we never told them that it bothers us. Because then they're not doing anything wrong. Because they don't know it's wrong. Unless we tell them. And then we're going to talk about spiritual boundaries. These are boundaries you set for yourself based on your religion, or boundaries you set with others regarding your willingness to discuss spirituality or share your religious practice. And then, depending on what your religion is, there may be certain days in which you're unavailable. And you will need to explain to people that you are unavailable. But you shouldn't feel compelled to explain further unless you're comfortable doing so. So if you have holidays for your religion and you don't want to take client calls, you can simply tell people you're not available. If you're comfortable discussing your religion and telling them that it's religious reasons that you're not available, you can do so. But you shouldn't feel compelled to. And then this section also includes telling people not to touch your possessions if it makes you uncomfortable. For a lot of my spiritual friends, if you have tarot cards, crystals, an altar, anything, for some reason everybody wants to touch them. And you probably don't want everybody's energy on your stuff. And I don't know why people don't understand that these things are off limits. But maybe that makes people want to touch them more. But it's okay to tell people, like, hey, I'm not comfortable with you touching that. I don't like people touching my stuff. Now, how do you communicate your boundaries? How you communicate your boundaries is incredibly important. If people don't understand what your boundaries are, the first thing I want you to do is wonder if you communicated them clearly. Ask yourself, have I explained my boundaries, or do I expect other people to be mind readers? Because I'm going to let you know, people are not mind readers. A lot of people, most people, are way too focused on what's going on in their own lives than to try to figure out what's going on in your mind. We simply cannot expect people to mysteriously know and understand what our boundaries are if we have never communicated them. We are in control of how we allow others to treat us. And at any time, we can tell people the current situation is not working for us. So even if you have a relationship where you have never had any boundaries before, it is okay to get up today and say, hey, this is really not working for me this way. I'm not really available at this time. I've been doing this for you for this reason. Or whatever it is, what your boundaries are, you can change them right now today. And it may be uncomfortable to explain what your boundaries are, especially if you've been letting people walk all over you for a long time. And people may be upset at first. However, if people cannot respect your boundaries, then they don't respect you. And I don't mean you must eliminate people from your life immediately for crossing your boundaries. However, if you have communicated them numerous times and they continue to be crossed, leaving you feeling upset, then it may be time to reevaluate that relationship. And why do we fear boundaries? Often we fail to set boundaries because we fear the repercussion. We feel guilty saying no, or we'll feel as if we will miss out on something when we say no. And many of us have not learned to separate ourselves from others. Maybe you're lacking self-esteem or your own identity. When we start thinking about creating boundaries, suddenly thoughts pop up like, well, what if they get mad? What if they stop talking to me? What if they say no? What if they leave? And these feelings have often been so ingrained in us from childhood that it takes a lot of inner work to get over them. But I promise it is worth going through the work and figuring it out. So what from the past does contribute to these feelings? People who have trouble setting boundaries often were not taught this skill, or they might have even been taught it's their job to give selflessly, which I see in a lot of women. We're taught that we would grow up and take care of people, take care of children, take care of husbands. A lot of the times the jobs we get are in a caring capacity. Other times we have deep childhood issues that contribute to struggling to set healthy boundaries. If you never witnessed any healthy boundaries, it can be incredibly hard to start setting them yourself. And you might have to look to other people who do have healthy boundaries and learn from them. If you're really struggling with it, I want you to look back at your life and see if anyone around you ever set healthy boundaries and if they taught you how to do it. And most likely when you start thinking about it, you'll be able to pinpoint where your disordered pattern comes from. And then it'll be easier to start changing it. And it's a great subject to add to your journaling practice that I keep suggesting that you start every single week. So what are the signs that our boundaries have been crossed? A lot of times we may not realize that our boundaries have been crossed. We simply notice the feelings associated with these boundaries being crossed. These feelings are often discomfort, lack of energy, resentment. If you find yourself angry with someone you care about, or you find yourself resenting someone, it's a good time to see if and where your boundaries have been crossed. Sometimes it might be obvious that our boundaries have been crossed because we're immediately hurt or angry. But other times, like I said, it might just be we know we're getting really irritated with people. Like a certain person is irritating you. Every time you hear their name or see a message pop up from them, you're irritated. There's probably something going on. And it's helpful to figure out what it is and just discuss it and get it out of the way. Because nobody wants to live their life being resentful or uncomfortable. And who can you talk to when you struggle with boundaries? If you're really unsure of what healthy boundaries are or how to express them, then it's a good time to talk to someone that you trust, like a friend or a family member. And if you don't have a trusted family and friends, because often they're the people we need to set the boundaries with, then you can talk to a coach or a therapist that can see from an outside perspective what's going on and help you realize that it's okay to set boundaries. Not just okay, it's necessary. That's what I want you to, the number one thing I want you to get out of this today. Boundaries are necessary if you want to be happy. If you often find yourself feeling unhappy, I guarantee you don't have enough boundaries. And then I want you to remember, it is completely acceptable to start small. You do not have to change your life completely overnight. Just take small little steps and build on it until you have things the way that you want them to be. And as always, all of these notes will be on Captivation Radio on the latest episode, which will be establishing boundaries. And I love you all. I'm wishing you a prosperous 2021. If you have anything that comes up about boundaries when you're listening to this, feel free to send me a message, tag me in your stories if you enjoyed the episode. I love you all.